So before starting chapter, I was just going to start the explanation, and I'm reminded of this picture. This picture is one of the most influential pictures of all time, like 100 photos. I'll give you this link. You can check out the pictures. This picture is of a malnutrition child, and this is a picture of a vulture. The vulture is waiting for this child to die. I think somewhere from Africa, where this child is malnutrition and people were dying. This vulture is just waiting. And this picture, the thing that I want to tell you most is that this picture probably earned more awards and prize money than one city where these people are probably dying, because poverty sells. Okay, poverty is a very big business. Most of the big photographers of the whole world, they come to these, you know, very shabby areas, and then they click pictures of those places, and then they sell them for millions. So that is poverty to the rich people. It's not something that they look forward to elevating means decreasing. They just go there because it's exotic to them. They've never seen people being so poor. One more picture, I'm reminded of one more picture. Let me show you. You must have seen this picture. NGC girl, eyes, something like that. I'll show you. Yeah, this girl. I'm sure you must have seen this picture. Yes, this picture won all the picture awards there were, probably. Okay, it came on this cover of National Geographic magazine, and this picture got all the awards because there was something about the eyes of this girl. She is probably from Iraq or Iran, somewhere. Afghanistan. Okay, she's from Afghanistan, and while this picture was taken, this her country was in a war. It was a war-torn country, and her eyes. I don't know what kind of expression this is, but they do speak a lot. That they've. I don't know. You tell me. I have various interpretations. I think they are fearless, and they are just that kind of eyes, like, I'm done with whatever you want. She has seen the worst. There's nothing more to see in this world for her. When you lose your family, anything. So this is when she has grown up. Okay, now we are going away from the topic. So my point is that poverty is a very big business. Okay, poverty sells. We are also going to do something very similar. We're going to read about poverty in the comfort of our homes with expensive gadgets in our hands, and we're going to read about poverty. And it's ironical, right? Because we should be doing something about it, but instead we're reading it. And I think just reading about it and forgetting is the problem. Reading about it is a good thing. you know. Reading about it and being aware about it and being empathetic about these people is a good thing. But the next time you encounter a rag picker, if this story doesn't change his or her perception, your perception towards that rag picker, then there's no point. Okay, the point is to change your perception towards these people, the kind of lives they live. So be more empathetic. Let's first let's read the story of Sahib Alam, right? So uh, yeah. So the author goes there, like, why do you do this? I ask Sahib, whom I encounter every morning, scrounging for gold in the garbage dumps of my neighborhood. So usually metropolitan cities have designated places where they dump garbage, unlike Karimganj. So Sahib left his home. So in Karimganj, if there was a rag picker, this whole city is, like a place where he can do his business. So, but in metropolitan cities, they have garbage dumps in the neighborhood. Where don't be mad at me for saying that. I know you. I know you expect me to say that, right? So she went there and she asked him, like, why do you do this? A typical rich people question. Like, तुम ये काम क्यों कर रहे हो, right? घर पे बैठ के आराम क्यों नहीं कर रहा? So Sahib left his home long ago, set amidst the green fields of Dhaka. His home is not even a distant memory. There were many storms that swept away their fields and homes, his mother tells him. That's why they left looking for gold in the big city where he now lives. So, a lot of people, as you know, left in 1971 from Dhaka and they settled in Delhi. I'll show you some pictures. Wait. Now that we have access to this, we can obviously show you pictures. There are various settlement colonies. They settled in Simapuri, right? It's on the outskirts of Delhi, and these poor people probably settled there, right? Everywhere you see only garbage. Okay, it's basically the garbage dump of Delhi. Okay, one of them is this, and there are other places as well. But Simapuri is where these people settled, and there are other places. There is one more called CR Park, right? CR Park, EPDP. EPDP is East Pakistan Displaced Person. So all these people who went from Dhaka and East Pakistan went to CR Park. This is the Kalibadi in CR Park. I'm just giving you a tour of a digital tour of New Delhi. Is this Kalibadi? I don't know. Maybe. But CR Park is where all the affluent Bengalis are. Okay, they are from East Bengal, basically, Bangladesh. But they are very, very rich people, right? So they went and settled there. All the poor people settled in outskirts of Delhi. There are other people. Let me show you the picture of people who came from Pakistan. Kingsway Camp. So this is all in the middle of Delhi. Okay, so Delhi is made up of these these places. So this was a Kingsway Camp. Kingsway Camp is not called Kingsway Camp now. This was a camp which was set up. No, this is the map of Delhi. This is not a camp. Where is the camp? Probably here. So people who came from Pakistan after the partition, they settled in Delhi in these camps. See, something like this. So basically, Delhi was not as developed, right, as full of buildings then in 1947. So in Kingsway Camp, is there a way to enlarge this? Let me see. Right. So these were the camps that were set up by the government of India to locate, basically, to temporarily put up these people who came from Pakistan, who left Pakistan and came to Delhi. So there were only one or two trains that were flying from Pakistan, from Gadar, देखिए Gadar, not Gadar, Gadar, yeah, Gadar is the picture, Gadar ek Prem Katha, right, Sunny Deol. So one or two trains when they were leaving, so these people just left everything from there and then they came and settled in Delhi. So this is the Kingsway camp. It's also called GTB Nagar now, Guru Tegh Bahadur Nagar. So this is where all the IAS coaching centers are. So if you ever want to clear IAS, you can go there now. So now, कहाँ से कहाँ पहुँच गए देखते देखते. Coming back. So she asks him, Sahib left home long ago, set amongst the green fields of Dhaka. So Dhaka वहाँ से गए थे, partition से 1947 गए थे. Now we come back. So she just asked him, ki, why do you do this? So then she gives us an introduction about Sahib Alam. Like, I have nothing else to do, he mutters, looking away. So a very rich question again. You go to school, I say, glibly. You know what glibly basically means? Not thinking much, whether this is the right thing to say or not, sincerely actually thinking of what you're actually saying. So if you encounter somebody poor, okay, doing something which according to you is a menial job, like, why do you do this? You might ask them because you don't have anything else to ask. Like, you suggest him to go to school, realizing immediately how hollow that advice must sound, because if he doesn't have anything to eat, how will he go to school? It's that simple. There is no school in my neighborhood. When they build one, I will go. So Sahib Alam gives a very logical response that there is no school, and if they start one, I will go. So the author says, if I start a school, will you come? I ask, half joking. Like, yes, he says, smiling broadly. A few days later, I see him running up to me. Is your school ready? So Sahib ने पकड़ लिया कि हाँ मैडम आप तो कह रही थी स्कूल खुलेगा. Where is your school now? So like, it takes longer to build a school. I say, embarrassed at having made a promise that was not meant. So you should be very, very careful when you make promise to these children, because it breaks their heart when you don't fulfill your promise. Most of the times people don't. But promises like mine abound in every corner of his bleak world. Just as I said, a lot of people just promise them things and never fulfill their promises. So promises like her, that I will open a school for you, abound means they surround them from all sides. But promises like these are never fulfilled. After months of knowing him, I ask him his name. Sahib-e-Alam, he announces. He does not know what it means. If he knew, wait, if he knew, Lord of the if he knew, where am I? Where was I reading? If he knew its meaning, Lord of the Universe, he would have a hard time believing it. Unaware of what his name represents, he roams the streets with his friends, an army of barefoot boys who appear like morning birds and disappear at noon. Over the months, I have come to recognize each one of them. So he comes to these garbage dumps with his friends, an army of barefoot boys. So they are all barefoot. Okay, they are not wearing any shoes. So she asked them, "Why aren't you wearing any chappals?" I asked one. "My mother did not bring them down from the shelf," he answers simply. So he just said that my mother didn't bring them down from the shelf. Why would the mother not bring them down from the shelf? Because they would be spoiled, right? If he wears them too often. So she did not just bring them down from the shelf. She kept it for special occasions, right? Even if she did, he will throw them off, adds another who is wearing shoes that do not match. When I comment on it, so she comments that, okay, you're wearing shoes that don't match. Don't match means they're not from the same pair, different shoes. He shuffles his feet basically. He tries to go back, tries to hide his feet. So if you're, like, let's say somebody points out, okay, your shirt is torn, you try to hide that spot, right? So if somebody points out, okay, there is something on your shoe, or there is something on your face, there is something in your head, immediate response is to hide that from that person. You become very conscious of it. So this guy also becomes very conscious, and he tries to shuffle his feet. That means he tries to go back, he try to hide the feet, hide the shoes, and says nothing. I want shoes. So then a third person says that I want shoes. Says a third boy who has never owned a pair all his life. Traveling across the country, I have seen children walking bare feet in cities on village roads. It is not lack of money, but a tradition to stay barefoot is one explanation. So they are saying it is not lack of money, but just the tradition. Everybody around them is bare feet, so they are bare feet. No one likes wearing chappals because it is not a tradition there. I wonder if this is only an excuse to explain away a perpetual state of poverty. There is a difference between a state of poverty and a perpetual state. Perpetual is continuing ever, forever. Okay, so it's not like it's poverty was there in one generation. Some people have stories like of how their grandparents were very poor, or how even their parents were very poor, and they've seen them how they grew out of poverty. They worked very hard, they got educated, okay, and then either one of them, got the education, got every sibling educated, and then slowly they climbed the ladder in the economy, uh, and then they became what they are right now. But in their case, in families like Sahib Alam, there has been a perpetual state. So they have been poor for ever since they can remember. Their generations are poor, so they have not been able to come out of this poverty. Now she's going back and she's remembering, writing about some other story that she knows. I remember a story a man from Udupi once told me. As a young boy, he would go to school past an old temple where his father was a priest. He would stop briefly at the temple and pray for a pair of shoes. 30 years later, I visited his town and temple, which was now drowned in an air of desolation. In the backyard where lived the priest, there were red and white plastic chairs. A young boy dressed in grey uniform, wearing socks and shoes, arrived panting and threw his bag on a folding bed. Looking at the boy, I remembered the prayer another boy 30 years before had made to the goddess when he finally got a pair of shoes. Let me never lose them. The goddess had granted his prayer. Young boys like the son of priest now wore shoes, but many others, like rag pickers in my neighborhood, remained shoeless. So she just, entered a random memory from her head from how she, when she was told a story about a man from Udupi, that the priest's son, when he went past the temple, always asked for shoes, and once he got those shoes, he then started praying about not losing those shoes. So she realized that after 30 years, when she went back to the same place, she now saw that priests and their children now always wore shoes, now that they are well to do enough that they can at least afford shoes for their children. But these rag pickers, even in these 30 years, they have remained shoeless. My acquaintance with barefoot rag picker leads me to Simapuri, the place where I showed you. I did not show you that well. Let me try to Simapuri. Sima, where is Simapuri. Let me check how long the video has gone on for. It doesn't show. Anyways. So Simapuri, the first picture is of a garbage dump. Okay, it's like this. So you get a sense of what the place is like. See, this is like the normal area of Simapur. It's like a slum. It's like Mumbai's Dharavi, if you've ever seen on pictures. This is what Simapuri is like. All the garbage of Delhi comes here. It gets segregated here, and this is what the profession of most people in Simapuri is. It's like this. See, like this mostly, right? So it brings us back to rack pickers, barefoot rack pickers of Simapuri, a place on the periphery of Delhi, it miles away from it, metaphorically. Now, this is, I've taught you metaphor, right? I hope you can connect the dots. What do you mean by literally is the opposite of metaphorically? Anything that is happening literally is happening in reality. Metaphor is a comparison where you compare something imaginative with something real, okay, or even two imaginative things for example, for that matter. So here she's like, it's a place on the periphery of Delhi. That means it's on the outskirts of Delhi, yet miles away from it. Let me show you with an example. No, with a diagram. खुल जा भाई, क्या है ये? I hate these computers when they're so slow. It's opening, wait, huh? Yes. So here we are. This is Delhi, right? This is Simapuri. It's on the outskirts of Delhi. This is Delhi. So this is where. So technically, if you measure the distance between Delhi and Simapuri, it's not much. It's a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it, metaphorically. Metaphorically basically means here that this place, if you compare Delhi and its development to Simapuri and its development, it is miles away from it. So the comparison is being made between Delhi as a city and Simapuri as its outskirts, okay, as its periphery. So the rag pick, my acquaintance, so the rag pickers of, it leads her to Simapuri, the rag pickers of Simapuri. Simapuri is, you please learn this line, always mention this in your answers. It is a place on the periphery of Delhi, yet miles away from it metaphorically. Those who live here are squatterers who came from Bangladesh back in 1971. Sahib's family is amongst them. Simapuri was then a wilderness. Okay, it was a wilderness, not wilderness. Is it wilderness? Let me check. It is wilderness. Wilderness. Okay, I'll teach you how to read this. Wilderness. It was then a wilderness. Wilderness basically means it was only trees and forest. There was no building, there was no roads, there was no development. It still is, but is no longer empty. So there are no buildings and things like that. They are still, but it is no longer empty. There are people there. Okay, there's no development as such, right? But there are people there. It is a wilderness in the sense that it is still wild. Okay, it might not be a forest, it is metaphorically a forest, because people are there, wild, living there, living a wild life there. It's not a developed cultured life that they're living there. They're living among garbage. Okay, it's a wild life that they're living. It still is, but it's no longer empty. In structures of mud, with roofs of tin and tarpaulin, devoid of sewage, drainage, or running water, live 10,000 rag pickers. They have lived here for more than 30 years without an identity, without permits, but with ration cards that get their names on voter lists and enable them to buy grain. Food is more important for survival than an identity. So what do politicians do? Even if there is a settlement, okay, politicians, what is the first priority of a politician? Development, right? Wrong. It is votes and winning election, right? So if they see people, they want them to have votes, because then they can, on the last day of the election, they can then shower 500 rupee notes on them, and then they will give them votes, and then they will win for those 5 years, and they are sorted, right? So as soon as they see people, they want their identity cards, their voter ID cards made. Food is more important for survival than an identity. Sorry. So as soon as you get your ration card, you can get your voter ID cards. Food is more important for survival than an identity. If we at the end of the day, if at the end of the day we can feed our families and go to bed without aching stomach, we would rather live here than in the fields that gave us no grain. Say a group of women in tattered saris Say a group of women in tattered saris when I asked them why they left their beautiful land of green fields and rivers. तो ढाका ढाका की पिक्चर देखोगे अगर तुम, मैंने तो नहीं देखी है, कुछ लोगों ने देखी होगी यहाँ पे, ढाका गए होंगे, ढाका की पिक्चर देखते हैं, ढाका कैसा लगता है, ढाका 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 तो भाई मुंबई टाइप का है। ओहो, ढाका तो बहुत डेवलप लग रहा है, क्या बात। Okay, it is the capital, but let's see the green fields of Bangladesh. हाँ, सेम डिट्टो, जैसे इंडिया में ग्रीन फील्ड्स होते हैं वैसे ही बांग्लादेश में भी हैं, राइट, नो डिफरेंस। सो ऐसे ऐसी जगह छोड़ के ये लोग यहाँ पे क्यों आए गार्बेज डंप में रहने, ऐसे ऐसे यहाँ पे क्यों रहने आए, ये पूछ रही है ऑथर कि तुम ये सब छोड़ के क्यों आए हो यहाँ पे रहने। दे आर लाइक कि एट द एंड ऑफ द डे वी कैन फीड आवर फैमिलीज, कि भाई रात को अगर पेट भर के हम सो जाएं बिना पेट दर्द के, हम यहाँ पे रह लेंगे, rather than in those fields which gave us no green. So I don't know why she's saying that, maybe probably because they did not have enough land to feed a whole family, right? Only the rich farmers. So people who think